It took 1 second for a man to lose everything, and everything wasn't even his. 3 in the morning. He sits alone at the kitchen table, lit only by the glow of a phone, watching the last minute of a match nobody else on earth is watching. 2 clubs from a league he can barely pronounce, in a country he'd struggle to find on a map. Riding on that 1 minute is all of it. A mortgaged flat, borrowed money, loans piled on loans, and cash that belonged to people who trusted him. His team leads 1-0. 90 seconds to survive. He doesn't breathe. Then, deep in stoppage time, a deflected shot loops over the keeper and dies in the net. 1-1. The whistle screams into an empty room. Almost 90,000 gone in the space of a heartbeat. And barely a single coin of it was ever his. And trust me, that isn't even the worst part of this story yet. He'd walked straight into a trap older than the game itself. So how does an ordinary man end up here at 3 in the morning betting a home he no longer owns? So how does a grown adult end up betting his house on a game at 3 in the morning? The uncomfortable answer: it isn't stupidity. It's chemistry. Your brain runs on a reward chemical, and here's the cruel trick. It doesn't spike hardest when you win. It spikes hardest when you almost win. The near miss. The ball that rattles the post. The last leg that dies in stoppage time. Your body reads that as, so close, one more try, and floods you with the exact feeling that keeps you clicking. None of this is new, by the way. We've been wagering since long before we could write. Loaded dice turn up in ruins thousands of years old. For most people, that itch stays a bit of harmless fun. The trouble starts with the few whose off switch was never installed. The ones who simply cannot hear the alarm. One more. Always to win it back. And there is an entire industry built to hunt those people down. An industry that already did the math. A cold, simple math that guarantees you lose. Here's the first thing to understand. The bookmaker isn't gambling against you. He isn't even watching the match. He's a shopkeeper selling you a product priced from the start to lose. Watch the trick. Every possible result in a match has its odds. And every odd is really a hidden percentage, the chance the bookie pretends to give that outcome. In a fair world, the chances of everything that can happen add up to 100%. Exactly 100, not a fraction more. But add them up on a real betting slip, and you never land on 100. You get 105, sometimes 110. That extra slice, baked into the numbers, is the house's guaranteed wage. Every market, every match, forever. So you're not fighting fair odds. You're fighting odds with a tax stapled on before kickoff. Call half your bets right, brilliant, and that tax still bleeds you dry. One hot night proves nothing. But there's a loophole, says the clever one. And he's right, there is. Here's the loophole, and best of all, it's completely legal. It's called arbitrage, and it turns betting from a gamble into arithmetic. It leans on one fact. Bookies don't just disagree with reality, they disagree with each other. When two price the same match differently enough, you back one side at one shop and the other at another, and profit no matter who wins. Not a fortune, 2, maybe 3%, but guaranteed, 0 luck. You've stopped gambling and started printing. So why isn't everyone rich? The twist. A bookmaker's real business was never taking bets. It's taking bets from losers. A steady winner isn't a customer. He's a fault in the machine. And the machine deletes faults. Deletion is quiet and polite. Your maximum stake shrinks to the price of a coffee. Verification arrives and never ends. Then the friendly email. Your custom is no longer welcome. That's the one rule that runs this world. You're allowed to play, never to win. So where do these people actually live? They live here in the chat box bolted to the side of every live score site. Officially, it's for match talk. Unofficially, it's a hospital ward where somebody forgot to send the doctors. I climbed in, started reading, and could not look away. First up, a man they call All In. He's just dropped an entire month's wages on a can't-lose favorite, and he's narrating it like a war hero. Screenshots, promises, exclamation marks. 40 minutes later, he posts a single quiet word. I won't repeat it. 2 lines down sits the jobless analyst, proudly announcing he handed in his notice this morning to bet for a living. His account? Created today. And beneath him, Spot Me 50, politely asking a room full of broke strangers to lend him a little cash. Sworn to pay it back double by Friday. A man who cannot beat the bookie offering you an investment. I could laugh at all of it, but to really understand this ward, you first have to learn how they speak, and then you meet the tribes at war. To survive in that ward, you need the dialect. Here's your crash course. BTTS means both teams to score, a bet that each side finds the net. Over and under is a running argument about goals, more than some number or fewer, and the handicap hands one team an invisible head start, or a deficit, to make a lopsided game worth betting on. It's an entire language invented for one purpose, to scream at a television for 90 straight minutes. Then there are the holy wars. For a week I watched two men battle over whose method was superior. The first calls himself the Shaman. He bets on signs. Woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That's a sign, back the away team. The second is the calculator, who counts corners from the last 5 matches and calls it science. Over that week, both lost almost exactly the same amount. Naturally, each was sure the other was the clown. They argued like the fate of nations hung on it, not a few dollars in a betting app. But one regular didn't argue with people at all. He'd picked a different enemy entirely. A single goalkeeper, he was certain, had ruined his life. That's the keeper's prosecutor. He didn't blame the team, or the manager, or himself. He blamed one specific goalkeeper who cost him a bet, and now sends the poor man furious messages like a jilted ex. The goalkeeper, of course, has no idea a stranger somewhere holds him personally responsible for the ruin of his life. But the true heartbreak of this world has a name, and it's this: one leg to go. A regular called the Almost Millionaire builds a 15-match parlay live in the chat, talking everyone through it, and one by one, they land. 14 of them. 14. And the final leg, he types all in capitals, "If this hits, I'm buying a new car." His team just needs the win. The match is level, deep into stoppage time, and then the referee points to the spot. A penalty. The chat detonates. Everyone's congratulating him, the car basically in the driveway. The striker steps up and hammers it clean over the bar. Full time. A draw. The parlay is dead, and the car vanishes into thin air. The chat falls silent. Not a message for a whole minute. Then 3 small words appear. Well, that's it. I was still smoking at all of this, until someone asked the room 5 very simple questions. Someone in the chat ran a little survey. 5 questions. How old were you when you placed your first bet? How long have you been at it? How deep are your debts? And what has it done to your life? The usual crowd of jokers piled in first. But scroll past them, and the honest answers were quietly the most disturbing thing in that entire room. One man kept it short. Placed his first bet as a teenager at a corner shop counter. That was 11 years ago. His debts now run to the price of 2 used cars. He doesn't sleep. His nerves are gone. And the only thing he still feels is the pull to win it all back tomorrow. If he'd never handed over that first note, he wrote, he'd be a normal person today. Another answered in one line. He'd stopped counting the money and started counting what it cost him, the marriage, the friends, the years that never came back. But it was the next reply that stopped me cold. This one said the worst thing that ever happened to him wasn't a loss at all. It was the one night he won big. Because from that night on, he was certain it would always be that easy, and he spent the next several years chasing a feeling that never returned. That single sentence explains this entire world, and I already knew exactly who had been chasing that feeling the longest. Remember the man from the very start? 3 in the morning, the glow of a phone, a whole life vanishing on one final whistle. Here he is at last. In these circles they call him the paywall prophet. Betting became his religion 2 decades ago. Since then, he's lost by rough count 2 homes. Rough, because counting his losses is like counting raindrops. But he has a system. A 96-page notebook crammed with arrows, goalkeeper names, and the word goal underlined 3 times. In all those years, that system has never once won. He's sure he just hasn't finished tuning it. A few more evenings of analysis, he says, and he's been saying that since before half that chat was born. He plays one sacred ritual, a 12-match parlay. 12 games that all have to land or the entire thing collapses. He picks 12 for the bigger odds. 11 land almost every time. The 12th, somewhere around 4 in the morning, quietly buries him. And then, one day, He got tired of losing only his own money. So he opened a private club. Hand him your money. He bets it with his golden touch and you split the profits. The first month actually worked. He got lucky twice, paid people back extra, and word spread like fire. Cash poured in. You already know the rest. He's an addict. He lost all of it. He paid the first members with the newcomers' money, then took out loans to cover that. A pyramid built by a man who physically cannot walk past a bet. It came down in about half a year, and that collapse is the very 3-hour wipeout we opened this whole story on. So here's the bottom line. Sports betting is just a casino with extra steps, rigged against you from the first second. You're welcome to play, you're simply never allowed to win. Mind your money, mind your head, and go easy on the goalkeepers. If you've ever met your own paywall prophet, drop his story below. I read every one. And I'm off to drag another strange little world into the light. Hit subscribe if you'd like to come along.